The internet froze for a split second, and then absolutely exploded. Late last night, a single clip sent shockwaves across timelines everywhere, with fans whispering, arguing, and flat-out yelling into their phones. The name at the center of the storm? Nicki Minaj. The rumor lighting the fuse was simple but brutal, that Nicki had allegedly shifted toward going full MAGA, and the reactions from other black celebrities were anything but quiet. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high. Group chats caught fire. And within hours, insiders claimed phones were ringing off the hook as celebrities scrambled to respond, clarify, or completely distance themselves. Some voices were said to be furious. Others sounded betrayed. A few, allegedly cheering her on behind closed doors. But one thing was clear, the culture felt split right down the middle. Sources say one A-list star slammed the table during a private dinner, shouting, "This is bigger than music now." Another reportedly broke down in tears, telling friends they felt personally embarrassed. Meanwhile, social media timelines turned into digital battlegrounds, with fans demanding statements, explanations, and receipts. Was this a calculated move? A misunderstood moment? Or the beginning of an all-out cultural war no one saw coming? Behind the scenes, tensions were allegedly boiling. Longtime friendships were suddenly on pause. Group texts went silent, and according to whispers, at least one major collaboration was quietly shelved as emotions spilled over and lines were drawn. Tonight, we're unpacking every dramatic twist, who reacted publicly, who reacted privately, and who might never forgive what was said. Because if these rumors are true, the fallout isn't just loud, it's brutal. The clip didn't even last 30 seconds, but it felt like a cultural earthquake. Nicki's voice, sharp and confident, cut through the noise as she laughed and said a single line that sent fans spiraling. It wasn't a full speech. It wasn't a policy breakdown. But it was enough. Enough for fans to be shocked, enough for blogs to start running wild, and enough for other black celebrities to allegedly start reacting in real time. Within minutes, timelines were flooded with comments like, "Tell me this isn't real," and "Please say this is edited." But the clip kept replaying, unedited, raw, and brutal. And just like that, the narrative shifted. Sources close to the industry claimed the phones started buzzing immediately. One comedian reportedly paused a rehearsal mid-joke, staring at his screen in disbelief. A singer known for her activism allegedly whispered, "This can't be happening," before walking out of the room. Emotions ran high, and nobody knew whether to laugh it off or prepare for war. Fans weren't just confused, they felt personally invested. To them, this wasn't just a celebrity moment, it felt like a line being crossed. And behind the scenes, the reactions were said to be even more intense than what leaked online. According to insiders, a private group chat made up of black entertainers that had existed for years suddenly exploded with messages. At first, it was jokes. Nervous jokes. "She trolling again?" one message read. But the tone shifted fast. Accusations followed. Someone allegedly typed, "Nah, this time feels different." Another fired back, "She's always done what she wants, why are we surprised?" The conversation reportedly turned heated, with voices notes sent back and forth, some angry, some shaky, some outright furious. One actress was said to have cried while recording hers, saying she felt like the culture was being embarrassed on a global stage. Meanwhile, a veteran rapper allegedly took a very different stance. According to a leaked quote shared by a blogger, he shrugged and said, "She's rich, she's powerful, and she don't answer to nobody." That comment alone caused another wave of outrage. Fans accused him of being silent when it mattered most. Others praised him for keeping it real. The family was left divided, not just among celebrities, but among fans who had grown up idolizing these figures. Suddenly, concerts, old lyrics, and past interviews were being re-examined like evidence in a trial. One of the most talked about reactions came from a popular R&B singer who, according to multiple sources, canceled a planned studio session the same night. She reportedly told her team, "I need time before I say something I can't take back." That silence only made things worse. Fans flooded her comments demanding a statement. "Say something," they wrote. "Where do you stand?" Pressure mounted as every move, every like, every follow was dissected. Staying quiet was now seen as choosing a side, and that terrified more than a few people. Behind closed doors, the tension wasn't just professional, it was personal. Nicki, according to someone close to her camp, was well aware of the backlash and completely unbothered. She allegedly laughed it off, saying, "They loved me when I made them money." That quote, whether real or not, spread like wildfire and only poured gasoline on the fire. Some fans felt betrayed, others doubled down in support, insisting she was brave for thinking independently. But the loudest voices were the ones feeling blindsided, especially artists who had defended her in past controversies. A well-known TV host reportedly got into a screaming match with her producer after insisting they address the situation on air. "We can't ignore this," she allegedly yelled. "This is bigger than gossip." The segment was eventually cut, but word of the argument leaked, adding another layer of drama. Accusations started flying that networks were trying to protect certain people while letting others burn. Trust began to fracture, and long-standing alliances suddenly felt fragile. Fans watching all this unfold felt like they were witnessing the beginning of something irreversible. Reaction videos popped up within hours, some supportive, some enraged, some nearly in tears. One viral clip showed a fan saying, "I defended her through everything, but this? I don't know anymore." That uncertainty became the mood of the night. Nobody knew what the next move would be, but everyone sensed that the fallout was just getting started, and somewhere behind the scenes, conversations were happening that would change relationships forever. As the tension kept building and the silence before the next reaction felt louder than any statement could ever be. The morning after the clip went viral, the mood across the industry reportedly felt heavy, like everyone was waiting for an earthquake aftershock. Insiders claimed managers were calling emergency meetings, PR teams were drafting statements they weren't sure would ever be released, and artists were being warned to watch every word they posted. Fans were shocked not just by the rumor itself, but by how fast the reactions were escalating. Emotions ran high as screenshots of private messages allegedly began leaking, each one more explosive than the last. One message that made the rounds showed a well-known actor writing, "This is why I stay quiet," followed by another reply that simply said, "Silence is loud now." That exchange alone sparked thousands of arguments online. By midday, the story allegedly took a darker turn. A popular female rapper was rumored to have unfollowed Nicki on social media, a move fans immediately treated like a public declaration of war. Comments flooded in accusing her of betrayal, clout chasing, and hypocrisy. According to a source close to her, she was shaking with anger, telling friends she felt forced into a corner. She reportedly said, "Why do I have to explain myself because of someone else's choices?" But the internet didn't care about her frustration. To fans, the unfollow was a statement, and the culture was keeping score. Behind the scenes, another layer of drama was unfolding within families. One celebrity's brother allegedly went live late that night, half emotional, half furious, ranting that black entertainers were being used as chess pieces. He didn't name names, but viewers didn't need him to. The chat exploded with MAGA comments, snake emojis, and broken heart icons. The family was left divided, with relatives reportedly begging him to end the stream while others encouraged him to keep talking. By the time the live ended, clips had already gone viral, adding fuel to a fire that refused to die down. Industry veterans were said to be panicking quietly. According to insiders, award show producers started whispering about whether upcoming appearances would turn hostile. Would artists refuse to sit near each other? Would acceptance speeches turn political? One executive allegedly joked, "We might need security in the front row this year," but no one laughed. The tension felt too real. Even rehearsed smiles now seemed risky, as fans promised to analyze every glance, every whisper, every clap. Then came what many described as the first true betrayal. A longtime collaborator of Nicki's was rumored to have given an off-the-record interview to a blogger, expressing disappointment. The quote that spread like wildfire read, "I thought we were fighting for something bigger." Whether the quote was accurate didn't even matter. The damage was done. Fans took it as confirmation that the cracks were real. Nicki's supporters fired back hard, accusing the collaborator of riding her wave for years and turning on her when it was convenient. Insults flew. Receipts were demanded. Old interviews resurfaced as evidence of loyalty or lack thereof. As the days blurred together, the reactions grew more personal. A well-known actress allegedly confronted a friend at a private dinner, slamming her glass down and saying, "How can you defend this?" Witnesses claimed the room went silent. The friend shot back, "I'm defending her right to choose." Voices rose. Chairs scraped the floor. What was supposed to be a quiet gathering turned into a heated argument that ended with two people storming out separate doors. By morning, rumors of the blow-up were everywhere, framed as proof that the culture was tearing itself apart from the inside. Fans felt the emotional whiplash deeply. Reaction videos turned from confusion to anger to heartbreak. One creator sobbed on camera, saying, "I don't know who to believe anymore." Another shouted that everyone was overreacting and that this was all part of a bigger setup. Conspiracy theories bloomed overnight. Some claimed this was a distraction. Others believed it was a test to see who would fold under pressure. Every theory found an audience, because uncertainty breeds imagination. In the middle of the chaos, Nicki herself remained mostly silent, and that silence was deafening. According to someone in her circle, she believed responding would only make things worse. "They want a reaction," she allegedly said. "I'm not giving them one." But fans interpreted the quiet as confirmation. Memes popped up portraying her as unbothered, crowned, standing alone. Supporters praised her strength, saying she refused to be bullied. Critics said the silence showed arrogance. Either way, the divide grew sharper. Then came a surprise twist that no one saw coming. A respected elder in the entertainment world reportedly reached out privately to several younger artists, urging them to cool things down. He allegedly warned, "This is how they pit us against each other." Some listened, others didn't. One young star was said to have replied, "With all respect, this feels personal." That response leaked, and fans immediately picked sides again, arguing over whether wisdom or emotion should lead the moment. As tensions escalated, sponsorships and brand deals reportedly became part of the conversation. Insiders whispered that at least one company was reconsidering a partnership, not because of Nicki directly, but because of the chaos surrounding the narrative. That rumor alone sent fans into a frenzy, accusing corporations of policing black voices while pretending to be neutral. Accusations flew that money was now dictating morality, and that the real power players were invisible but very much in control. Late one night, a cryptic tweet from a male singer sent shockwaves. It read, "I won't sell my soul to fit in." No names, no context, but fans instantly connected it to the drama. Screenshots spread faster than explanations. Was he defending Nicki? Was he calling out others? Or was it about something else entirely? The ambiguity only made it more powerful. Emotions ran high again, and the cycle repeated itself, louder than before. By the time the second week rolled around, exhaustion had set in, but the story refused to die. Friendships were reportedly strained beyond repair. Trust felt broken. Fans who once felt united now argued with people they had followed for years. And as the noise kept growing, one thing became painfully clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just about a clip or a rumor anymore. It had turned into a full-blown cultural reckoning, with no clear ending in sight, and the next reaction, the next leak, the next emotional explosion felt inevitable as the drama continued to spiral. As the narrative dragged into its third phase, the emotional temperature somehow climbed even higher. What stunned people most was how private resentment started leaking into public spaces in ways nobody could control. A backstage assistant at a late-night show allegedly overheard two guests arguing in hushed voices, one saying, "She crossed a line," and the other snapping back, "You don't get to decide her politics." The assistant didn't record it, didn't name names, but told a friend, who told a blogger, and by sunrise the story had taken on a life of its own. Fans were shocked at how quickly whispers became headlines, and how every offhand comment was now treated like a declaration of war. The pressure on black celebrities to react became unbearable. According to insiders, some artists felt trapped between authenticity and survival. One young rapper reportedly paced his living room all night, rehearsing a statement he never posted. He was said to be torn, telling his partner, "If I speak, I lose fans. If I don't, I lose respect." That internal conflict resonated deeply with fans who saw themselves in the struggle. Emotions ran high because it wasn't just about celebrity drama anymore, it felt like a mirror reflecting personal fears and divisions within the community. Then came another twist that left people reeling. A well-known producer allegedly released a vague statement about unity and listening to each other without mentioning any names. It was meant to calm things down. Instead, it backfired spectacularly. Critics accused him of fence-sitting. Supporters accused others of bullying him into silence. The comments section turned vicious. "Say her name or stay quiet," one fan wrote. Another replied, "Why do y'all need blood every time?" The fight spilled across platforms, dragging more people into the storm whether they wanted to be there or not. Behind the scenes, friendships that had survived years of industry politics were reportedly cracking. One singer was rumored to have blocked a close friend after an argument that started over a single tweet. According to someone who claimed to be present, the singer shouted, "You know what this means to me," while the friend replied, "You're making it mean more than it has to." The argument ended with tears and silence. The family was left divided not just in public perception, but in real living rooms and group chats where conversations suddenly stopped. Fans weren't just watching anymore, they were participating. Boycott lists circulated alongside support campaigns. Playlists were deleted in protest. Others streamed music louder out of defiance. Reaction videos became more extreme, with creators screaming, crying, or laughing bitterly as they tried to process the chaos. One fan summed it up perfectly when she said, "I feel like I'm grieving someone who's still alive." That sentiment echoed everywhere, capturing the emotional confusion gripping the audience. The rumor mill reached a fever pitch when an alleged voice memo surfaced, supposedly from someone close to Nicki's circle. The audio was grainy, the voice unconfirmed, but the message was explosive. She knew this would happen, the voice claimed. She just didn't care. Within hours, the memo was dissected frame by frame. Experts weighed in on whether it was real. Fans argued over its meaning. Supporters dismissed it as fake. Critics treated it like proof. Once again, truth became secondary to belief, and belief was splitting the culture in half. Another dramatic turn came when a respected journalist hinted on a podcast that there was more coming. That single phrase sent shockwaves through the internet. People braced for another leak, another revelation, another betrayal. Artists reportedly called their lawyers. PR teams went into overdrive. One publicist allegedly warned a client, "Assume everything you've ever said could come out." Paranoia set in, and with it, more silence. But silence only fed suspicion. In private, some celebrities were said to be questioning their own identities. One actress reportedly confided in a friend that the situation forced her to confront beliefs she had never examined. "I thought I knew where I stood," she said, according to the source. "Now I'm not so sure." That vulnerability never reached the public, but it highlighted a quieter truth beneath the chaos. This drama was shaking people at their core. Meanwhile, Nicki's supporters grew louder and more organized. Hashtags trended declaring loyalty. Fans claimed she was being targeted for refusing to conform. They pointed out past moments when she had been criticized for being different, framing this as another chapter in the same story. Critics pushed back hard, arguing that influence comes with responsibility. The arguments grew circular, endless, and exhausting. Emotions ran high because no one felt heard, only attacked. A particularly brutal moment came when an old clip resurfaced of a black celebrity praising unity years ago. Fans juxtaposed it with their current silence, accusing them of hypocrisy. The celebrity reportedly broke down after seeing the backlash, telling a friend, "I can't win." That sense of helplessness spread. The idea that no response would ever be good enough became a recurring theme, and it scared people into retreat. As the weeks went on, the drama started affecting real-world spaces. Concerts felt tense. Award show appearances were scrutinized before they even happened. Fans whispered about seating charts and guest lists. Will they sit her next to them? Will someone walk out? Anticipation built like a storm cloud. Everyone felt it. Nobody knew how or when it would break. And still, there was no definitive statement, no clean resolution. Only fragments, reactions, and raw emotion. The culture felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for a moment that might never come. Because by now, the damage wasn't about one decision or one reaction. It was about trust, identity, and the painful realization that unity is fragile. And as the noise continued to swell, one question hung in the air, unanswered and uncomfortable, setting the stage for whatever explosion was coming next. By this point, the situation had evolved into something nobody could fully control. What began as speculation had hardened into belief for many, and belief turned into behavior. Insiders claimed security at certain industry events had been quietly increased, not because of physical threats, but because verbal confrontations were becoming more likely. One stylist allegedly overheard two guests exchanging icy pleasantries before one muttered, "I see you chose your side," under their breath. The tension was so thick it reportedly followed people into elevators, dressing rooms, and even parking lots. A major turning point came when a black director, known for being outspoken, was rumored to have walked out of a private screening after an argument erupted during the afterparty. According to witnesses, the conversation started calmly, with someone suggesting people were overreacting. But within minutes, voices were raised. The director allegedly slammed his hand on the table and said, "This is why we never heal," before storming out. By the next morning, the story had morphed into headlines claiming the industry was at war with itself. Fans were shocked by how raw and public everything felt. The emotional toll on fans became impossible to ignore. Comment sections turned into therapy sessions. People shared stories about family members arguing at dinner tables, friendships ending over group chats, and coworkers refusing to speak to each other. The family was left divided far beyond celebrity circles. One fan wrote, "This drama made me realize how far apart we really are." Another replied, "Or how much we're being pushed apart." Those comments alone sparked thousands of replies, each one more passionate than the last. Another unexpected twist came when a respected elder from outside the music industry released a carefully worded open letter calling for calm. It never mentioned Nicki by name. It never mentioned MAGA directly. But the message was clear: stop tearing each other apart. The response was mixed at best. Some praised the wisdom, others accused the elder of tone policing. "Now you want peace after the damage is done?" one comment read. Emotions ran high as even calls for unity became battlegrounds. Behind the scenes, younger artists were reportedly watching closely and learning harsh lessons. One up-and-coming singer allegedly told her team, "I'm scared to be myself now." That confession never went public, but it reflected a growing fear that authenticity came with consequences too heavy to carry. Mentors reportedly warned newcomers to stay neutral, to avoid hot topics, to protect their careers. But that advice clashed with a generation raised on speaking out, creating yet another layer of internal conflict. The pressure finally seemed to crack when a popular podcast host broke down mid-episode. Her voice shook as she admitted she felt overwhelmed. "I don't recognize the space we're in," she said. "Everyone's angry, and nobody's listening." The clip went viral instantly. Fans praised her honesty, while critics accused her of centering herself. Even vulnerability wasn't safe anymore. Every emotion was dissected, judged, and weaponized. Then came a moment many described as chilling. A longtime friend of Nicki's, someone who had defended her publicly in the past, allegedly posted a cryptic message late at night. It read, "Loyalty doesn't mean silence forever. Nothing else." No follow-up. The internet exploded. Fans treated it like a countdown clock. Was a statement coming? An exposé? A betrayal? Speculation ran wild, and the friend reportedly turned off comments within minutes. That silence only amplified the suspense. As days passed, fatigue set in, but resentment lingered. Some fans admitted they had stopped enjoying music altogether, saying everything felt tainted. Others doubled down, using the controversy as motivation to stream harder, comment louder, and defend their idols more aggressively. The divide wasn't shrinking, it was hardening. Emotions ran high because people felt like backing down meant losing something personal, something tied to identity and pride. Another dramatic rumor surfaced when an award show insider hinted that seating arrangements were being strategically planned. Fans interpreted that as confirmation that certain artists couldn't be trusted in the same room. Jokes turned into anxiety. "Imagine the side eyes," one tweet read. Another replied, "Someone's gonna walk out." Anticipation became part of the spectacle, and even events weeks away felt like ticking time bombs. Privately, some celebrities were reportedly questioning the cost of fame itself. One actor allegedly confided to a friend that the scrutiny made him want to disappear. "I didn't sign up to be a symbol," he said. That sentiment echoed quietly across the industry. Being famous now meant being interpreted, projected onto, and judged in ways that felt impossible to escape. The drama wasn't just loud, it was suffocating. And still, the central figure remained mostly silent, letting the chaos swirl. Supporters framed that silence as strength. Critics called it avoidance. But either way, it kept the story alive. Every day without resolution felt like another wound left open. Fans speculated endlessly about what a statement might include, whether it would heal or inflame, whether it would even matter anymore. By now, the situation had stopped being about right or wrong and started being about damage control. Reputations felt fragile. Trust felt broken. Alliances felt temporary. The culture felt tired but unwilling to let go. And as whispers continued and tempers flared, one thing was undeniable. This wasn't fading away quietly. It was building towards something, a confrontation, a confession, or a collapse. Nobody knew which, but everyone could feel it coming, heavy in the air, as the drama pushed closer to a moment that would force answers, whether anyone was ready for them or not. By now, the culture felt like it was stuck in a loop, replaying the same arguments but with sharper edges. What surprised people most was how resentment that had been quietly buried for years started surfacing under the weight of this controversy. Insiders claimed some celebrities were using the moment to finally say things they had held back forever. One singer allegedly snapped during a rehearsal, saying, "Y'all acting brand new, but this energy been here." The room reportedly went silent, because everyone knew she was right. This wasn't just about one artist anymore, it was about years of unspoken tension finally boiling over. A dramatic shift happened when a well-known activist figure reportedly reached out privately to multiple black entertainers, urging them to remember the bigger picture. According to someone who saw the messages, the activist warned that the public divide was being amplified on purpose. Some recipients appreciated the warning. Others felt insulted. One celebrity allegedly replied, "Don't tell me how to feel when I'm the one being dragged." That response leaked, reigniting debates about who gets to lead conversations and who gets silenced in the name of unity. Fans were exhausted but addicted. Every new rumor brought a fresh wave of outrage. Comment sections read like war zones, with people accusing each other of being brainwashed, fake woke, or traitors. Emotions ran high because everyone felt like they were defending something sacred. One fan admitted in a viral thread, "This drama made me realize I don't trust anyone famous anymore." That statement resonated deeply, spreading across platforms as people questioned whether celebrity voices should ever be taken seriously again. Another shocking twist emerged when an old interview resurfaced where a black celebrity had once criticized political conformity. Fans replayed the clip over and over, comparing it to their current stance. Accusations of hypocrisy flooded in. The celebrity reportedly felt blindsided, telling friends they didn't even remember the interview. "I was younger," they said. "People change," but the internet showed little mercy. Change was treated like inconsistency, and inconsistency like guilt. Behind the scenes, the financial impact of the drama reportedly became impossible to ignore. Whispers circulated that touring plans were being reconsidered, not because of ticket sales but because of potential protests. One promoter allegedly said, "We don't know what the crowd energy will be like." That uncertainty scared people. Concerts were supposed to be escapes, not battlegrounds. The idea that fans might turn on each other in real life made the situation feel more dangerous than any tweet storm. The family was left divided in ways that felt deeply personal. Some celebrities reportedly stopped attending gatherings altogether, choosing isolation over confrontation. One actor allegedly skipped a longtime friend's birthday, afraid the conversation would turn political. That absence spoke louder than any argument. Friendships cooled, bonds weakened, silence replaced laughter, and fans watching from the outside felt the sadness of it all, even as they continued to fuel the drama online. Another emotional moment came when a respected black woman in media broke down during a livestream. She admitted she felt heartbroken watching the community tear itself apart. "We're eating our own," she said through tears. The clip went viral instantly. Some praised her vulnerability, others accused her of emotional manipulation. Even grief became controversial. Emotions ran high because nobody could agree on what healing was supposed to look like. As the controversy dragged on, some celebrities began quietly backtracking. Likes were removed, follows were restored, posts disappeared without explanation. Fans noticed everything. Screenshots circulated proving that nothing ever truly vanished. Accusations of damage control spread, with critics claiming people were only softening their stance once they felt the heat. Supporters argued that reflection takes time. The debate itself became another source of conflict, another reminder that every move was being watched. Then came a rumor that sent shockwaves through the industry. An insider claimed a roundtable conversation was being planned behind closed doors, involving several major black entertainers. The goal, allegedly, was to address the division privately before it spilled further out of control. Fans reacted instantly. Some demanded transparency, others begged them not to turn it into a spectacle. Speculation exploded about who would attend and who would refuse. The idea of people facing each other without screens felt both hopeful and terrifying. In private conversations, some celebrities reportedly admitted they regretted how far things had gone. One singer allegedly said, "I miss when we could disagree without destroying each other." That quiet confession never reached the public, but it captured a feeling many were starting to share. The outrage was draining, the anger was heavy, but pride made it hard to step back. Nobody wanted to be the first to say enough. As days turned into weeks, the narrative shifted again, this time toward reflection. Fans began asking deeper questions. Why did this hit so hard? Why did it feel so personal? Some realized they had projected their own hopes and fears onto celebrities who were never meant to carry that weight. Others doubled down, insisting influence comes with responsibility. The argument didn't end, but it matured, becoming less explosive and more introspective for some. Still, the tension never fully disappeared. Every new appearance, every public smile, every collaboration rumor was analyzed for hidden meaning. The culture felt hyper-aware, like it had lost its innocence. What once felt like entertainment now felt like a test of values. And even as the noise softened, the scars remained. By the time people started asking whether things would ever go back to normal, the answer felt complicated. Something had changed, trust had shifted, boundaries had been exposed, the drama had peeled back layers people didn't even know were there. And as the community stood at this emotional crossroads, one truth became impossible to ignore: the conversation wasn't over. It was evolving, waiting for a moment of clarity or collapse, and whatever came next would define how this chapter was remembered, long after the hashtags faded and the timelines moved on. By the time the situation reached what many quietly called the breaking point, the energy had shifted again, heavier and more uncomfortable than before. It wasn't loud outrage anymore, it was simmering resentment. Insiders claimed that in private conversations, celebrities were no longer arguing about politics at all, but about loyalty, respect, and betrayal. One songwriter allegedly said, "This exposed who was really with us and who was just around for the benefits." That line spread fast, repeated by fans who felt it perfectly captured the mood. Emotions ran high because the drama had stopped feeling temporary and started feeling permanent. Another ripple spread when a viral think piece accused black celebrities of performing unity only when it was convenient. The article didn't name Nicki directly, but everyone knew what sparked it. Screenshots of highlighted paragraphs flooded social media. Fans debated every sentence. Some felt validated, others felt attacked. One actress reportedly texted a friend saying, "They're turning us into case studies." That fear of being reduced to symbols instead of humans became a recurring theme behind closed doors. Meanwhile, tension reportedly grew between generations. Older entertainers allegedly felt the younger ones were reckless, too quick to react, too emotional. Younger stars felt the elders were disconnected, hiding behind vague statements instead of taking risks. A private conversation between two singers of different generations reportedly ended with one saying, "Your silence taught us nothing," and the other replying, "Your noise is burning bridges." Neither walked away satisfied. The family was left divided along age lines as well as ideology. Fans noticed the shift too. Reaction videos became quieter, more reflective. Fewer people screamed, more people sighed. One creator admitted, "I'm tired, but I still can't look away." That exhaustion didn't stop engagement, it changed its tone. People argued less about who was right and more about how everything felt broken. Trust in celebrity voices continued to erode, replaced by skepticism and emotional distance. Another dramatic moment came when a major cultural event passed without acknowledgement of the controversy. No speeches, no statements, no symbolic gestures. For some, that silence felt like relief. For others, it felt like erasure. "They want us to forget," one fan wrote. "But we can't unsee this." Emotions ran high again, proving that even attempts to move on could reopen wounds. Behind the scenes, some celebrities were reportedly trying to repair damage quietly. Private apologies were sent, misunderstood comments were clarified one-on-one. A singer allegedly reached out to another late at night, saying, "I never meant to hurt you." The response came hours later. Intent doesn't erase impact. That exchange never went public, but it showed how deep the hurt ran. Healing wasn't impossible, but it was slow and fragile. Nicki's name continued to hover over everything like a shadow. Supporters insisted she had forced a necessary conversation. Critics argued she had ignited chaos without accountability. Both sides felt justified. The divide remained sharp, even as volume lowered. It wasn't about winning anymore, it was about not backing down. Pride kept people planted in their positions. Another rumor sent waves through the fandom when it was claimed that a documentary team had reached out to several artists about capturing this moment in real time. Fans reacted with horror and excitement in equal measure. "This isn't entertainment," one comment read. Another replied, "It already is." The idea that the pain could be packaged and replayed made some celebrities reportedly recoil. One actor allegedly said, "We're not content." But the line between lived experience and spectacle had already blurred. As time passed, subtle changes became noticeable. Celebrities stopped posting as much. Captions became neutral. Interviews avoided depth. One journalist noted that conversations felt emptier. The drama had taught people to protect themselves, to speak less, to reveal less. Fans felt that loss, even if they didn't fully understand it. Something raw had been pulled back behind a curtain. Still, unresolved questions lingered. Would there ever be a clear statement? Would relationships ever fully recover? Would the culture learn anything from this moment, or repeat it again with a different name? No one knew, but the impact was undeniable. Friendships had shifted, boundaries had been redrawn, illusions had cracked. The final twist came quietly, almost unnoticed at first. A small, unassuming post from a lesser-known black artist went viral overnight. It read, "We don't need to agree to still see each other as human." No hashtags, no commentary, just that sentence. Fans shared it thousands of times, calling it the most honest take yet. Celebrities liked it silently. The response felt different, softer, like a collective exhale. That post didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the anger or mend every fracture. But it changed the tone. For the first time in weeks, people weren't choosing sides, they were sitting with discomfort. Emotions still ran high, but they weren't exploding. They were settling. As the noise finally began to fade, one truth stood out: this wasn't just a scandal, it was a reckoning. About power, about identity, about how much weight we place on famous voices. The culture wouldn't look the same after this, and maybe it shouldn't. Because even in all the mess, something had been revealed. Something raw and uncomfortable and real. And as everyone waited to see what would come next, whether reconciliation or further collapse, the story remained unfinished. Not because no one spoke, but because what needed to be said was bigger than any one statement. The drama had slowed, but the questions it raised were still alive, lingering in conversations, memories, and the quiet spaces where certainty used to live. As the dust continued to settle, the aftermath revealed something even more unsettling than the chaos itself. Insiders claimed that what people were calling "moving on" was really just emotional numbness. The conversations didn't stop, they just went quieter, heavier, more guarded. Celebrities were said to be second-guessing every interview request, every lyric, every caption. One songwriter allegedly admitted, "I don't even know what I'm allowed to feel anymore." That sentence quietly echoed through fan spaces because a lot of people felt the same way. The culture hadn't healed, it had hardened. Lines were still drawn, but now they were invisible, sensed rather than shouted. At events, people smiled for cameras and hugged for optics, but sources said the warmth was gone. One photographer reportedly overheard a whispered exchange between two artists posing together, one saying, "This doesn't change anything," and the other replying, "I know." That moment never made headlines, but it spoke volumes. The family was left divided, even when it looked united on the surface. Fans began noticing the emotional distance. Interviews felt scripted, laughs felt forced, vulnerability disappeared. Some fans complained that celebrities felt checked out, while others defended them, saying the scrutiny had gone too far. Emotions ran high again, but this time with sadness instead of rage. People missed the connection they thought they had, even if they were starting to realize it might have been an illusion all along. Another wave of discussion started when educators and commentators began using the situation as an example in broader conversations about influence and identity. Suddenly, what started as celebrity drama was being referenced in panels, classrooms, and think pieces. Some celebrities reportedly felt uncomfortable being turned into lessons. One actor allegedly said, "We didn't consent to be a case study." But the moment had grown bigger than any one person, and there was no pulling it back. Privately, some artists were said to be struggling with guilt, not just over what they said or didn't say, but over how fans reacted on their behalf. One singer allegedly broke down after reading threats sent in her name. "This isn't what I wanted," she reportedly told her team. That realization hit hard. Influence came with consequences that were no longer abstract. They were real, and they were hurting people. Fans, too, began reflecting on their own behavior. Threads popped up where people apologized to strangers they had argued with weeks earlier. Others admitted they had projected their own trauma onto celebrities who could never fully represent them. These moments didn't go viral like the outrage had, but they mattered. They showed cracks in the cycle, small but significant. Still, not everyone softened. Some fans held on to anger, convinced that accountability had never come. They demanded statements that never arrived. They dissected old content, refusing to let the moment fade. For them, moving on felt like surrender. Emotions ran high because letting go felt like losing a fight they never chose to be in. Another subtle shift happened when new artists entered the spotlight and avoided the topic entirely. Interviews focused on music, not beliefs. Questions were deflected. Journalists noticed the change immediately. One wrote that it felt like a collective trauma response. The industry had learned that certain conversations came with too much risk. Silence became a survival tactic, not a stance. Behind closed doors, some celebrities were reportedly having the most honest conversations they'd had in years. Without cameras, without fans, without timelines. One producer allegedly said, "We forgot how to talk to each other without an audience." That admission felt crucial. The spectacle had swallowed the substance, and people were only now realizing how much damage that had done. Nicki's presence in the narrative remained complicated. She was still referenced, still debated, still defended and criticized, but no longer at the center of daily outrage. Instead, she became a symbol, a turning point people referenced when talking about before and after. Supporters insisted she had exposed hypocrisy. Critics maintained she had caused unnecessary harm. Neither side fully moved, but the intensity dulled. Another moment of reflection came when a fan-organized virtual forum gained traction. The goal wasn't to debate celebrities, but to talk about why the moment hurt so much. People shared stories about feeling abandoned, confused, or angry. Moderators emphasized listening over winning. It didn't solve anything, but it offered something rare: space. That alone felt revolutionary to some. As time passed, the industry resumed its rhythm, but something underneath had shifted. Trust was more conditional. Praise was more cautious. Outrage was quicker, but also more self-aware. People knew now how fast things could spiral, how quickly admiration could turn into resentment. One entertainment insider summed it up quietly, saying, "This taught everyone that there are no clean heroes anymore." That idea lingered. Fans stopped expecting perfection, but they also stopped offering blind loyalty. The relationship between celebrity and audience felt colder, but perhaps more honest. Toward the end of this chapter, there was no grand finale, no explosive revelation, no definitive apology or forgiveness. Instead, there was distance. And in that distance, reflection. Some relationships quietly repaired themselves. Others never did. Some fans stayed. Others walked away. What remained was a sense that something important had been exposed. Not just about politics or fame, but about how fragile unity can be when identity, power, and expectation collide. The drama had taken its toll, and while the noise faded, the lesson lingered. The story didn't end with closure. It ended with ambiguity. And maybe that was the point. Because real fractures don't always heal cleanly. Sometimes they just teach people where the cracks are, and what happens when too much pressure is applied. As the culture continued forward, carrying the weight of what had happened, one thing was certain. This moment would be referenced for years, not for what was said, but for how people reacted. And in that reaction, the community saw itself more clearly than it ever wanted to. As the months stretched on, what lingered wasn't outrage but unease. The kind that sits quietly in the background, reminding everyone that something fundamental had shifted. Insiders claimed that even casual conversations in studios felt different now. Jokes were softer. Opinions were filtered. One engineer allegedly said, "Every room feels like it's recording now," and that fear of being misunderstood became a constant companion. People weren't just guarding their words from the public, they were guarding them from each other. Fans could feel it too. Releases that should have felt celebratory were met with cautious applause. Interviews felt rehearsed, drained of spontaneity. One fan commented under a new music video, "This should feel bigger than it does." That sentiment spread. The excitement that once came effortlessly now had to push through layers of skepticism and emotional fatigue. Emotions ran high not because people were angry, but because they felt disconnected from something they once loved deeply. Another quiet but telling moment came when a veteran artist was asked in an interview about the state of the culture. He paused for a long time before answering. Then he said, "We're bruised." The interviewer tried to move on, but that word stuck. Bruised meant hurt but not broken. Sensitive, reactive, and that was exactly how the community felt. Every touch, every comment, every rumor felt like it landed harder than it used to. Behind the scenes, some celebrities were reportedly struggling with resentment toward fans. Not hatred, but frustration. One actress allegedly told her inner circle, "They say they want honesty, but they punish it every time." That realization stung. Authenticity had been marketed as the ultimate value, but the consequences of expressing it had never felt so severe. Many began to wonder if honesty was only celebrated when it aligned with expectations. Fans, on the other hand, felt betrayed in a different way. They believed their reactions were justified, that holding influential figures accountable was necessary. One viral post read, "We didn't ask to care this much, but they made us care." That line captured the push and pull at the heart of the drama. Celebrities felt overburdened by expectations. Fans felt dismissed when those expectations weren't met. The gap between the two widened quietly. A subtle shift occurred when new controversies popped up and failed to ignite the same fire. People noticed. Someone tweeted, "Remember when this would have broken the internet?" The reply said, "We're tired." The emotional reserves had been depleted. Outrage had limits, and the previous months had pushed many people to theirs. That exhaustion didn't mean forgiveness. It meant withdrawal. In private, some artists reportedly began redefining success. Fewer wanted to be everywhere. Fewer wanted to be loud. One musician allegedly said, "I just want to make my work and go home." That desire for simplicity clashed with an industry built on visibility and engagement. Stepping back felt like self-preservation, but also like surrendering space to louder, less cautious voices. Another layer emerged as fans started turning inward, questioning their own role in the cycle. Essays circulated about parasocial relationships and emotional investment. People admitted they had expected celebrities to fill gaps left by politics, family, or community. That realization was uncomfortable. It meant acknowledging misplaced hope. Emotions ran high because self-reflection often hurts more than anger. Some fans chose to disengage entirely. They unfollowed, muted, and stepped away. Others stayed but with new boundaries. Admiration became conditional. Loyalty became flexible. The idea of standing by someone forever felt naive now. The culture matured, but at the cost of innocence. Quiet reconciliation happened in places no one saw. Two artists rumored to have fallen out were reportedly seen laughing together at a private event. No photos, no statements, just a moment. Insiders said it wasn't forgiveness, but understanding. Those moments mattered, even if they didn't trend. They showed that healing didn't always need an audience. Still, some wounds remained open. Certain names were never mentioned again. Collaborations that once felt inevitable quietly died. The family was left divided not by explosive arguments anymore, but by absence. Silence replaced confrontation, and in some ways, that felt worse. Unanswered questions lingered, heavy and unresolved. As time created distance, narratives began to shift. Commentators reframed the entire episode as a turning point rather than a scandal. "This is when everything changed," one said. That framing allowed people to look back without reliving the raw emotion. Memory softened the edges, but not the lesson. One of the most telling signs of change came from fans themselves. When a new artist expressed a controversial opinion months later, the response was different. Less rage, more debate. Some said, "We can disagree without destroying them." Others weren't so forgiving, but the conversation felt slower, more deliberate. Growth wasn't universal, but it was visible. The industry adapted too. Media training intensified. Contracts included new clauses about public statements. Everything became more calculated. Some called it progress. Others called it fear. Both could be true. Safety often comes at the cost of spontaneity. In quieter moments, people began asking what unity actually meant. Was it agreement? Silence? Respect? The absence of conflict? There was no consensus. But the question itself mattered. It suggested a desire to rebuild something that had been shaken, even if no one knew how. By the end of this long arc, there was no hero and no villain, only a series of choices and reactions that collided in real time. The drama had exposed fragility on all sides. Celebrities weren't invincible. Fans weren't powerless. Both were human, navigating a world that rewarded extremes and punished nuance. The story didn't conclude with redemption or ruin. It settled into memory, a reference point people would return to when the next controversy erupted. "Remember last time," they would say. That memory would shape reactions, slow impulses, and maybe prevent history from repeating itself exactly the same way. And so the chapter closed not with certainty, but with awareness. Awareness of how quickly admiration can turn into expectation, how easily expectation can turn into anger, and how anger, when amplified, can fracture even the strongest bonds. The culture moved forward, carrying that awareness like a scar, not always visible, but always felt. As the story slowly settled into history, its echoes kept resurfacing in unexpected ways. Insiders said the real aftermath wasn't visible on social media anymore, it lived in the quiet recalibration of power and trust. Meetings that once felt casual were now carefully structured. Questions were pre-approved, jokes were tested before being spoken. One manager allegedly told a client, "Assume everything can be misunderstood." That mindset reshaped how celebrities moved, turning spontaneity into risk. Fans noticed a colder distance, even if they couldn't always name it. Live interactions felt shorter. Q&A sessions avoided depth. One fan wrote, "It feels like they don't trust us anymore." Others pushed back, saying trust had to be earned on both sides. Emotions ran high again, but this time in a low hum, like unresolved tension that never fully leaves a room. Another shift came when younger audiences began redefining who they looked up to. Micro-influencers and local voices gained traction as fans sought connection without the weight of massive platforms. "At least they feel real," one comment read. That movement didn't erase celebrity influence, but it diluted it. Fame no longer guaranteed moral authority. Admiration became fragmented, spread across many smaller figures instead of concentrated in a few. Behind the scenes, some celebrities reportedly felt relieved by that change. Less pressure meant fewer expectations. One artist allegedly admitted, "I don't want to be anyone's compass." That honesty reflected a growing desire to be seen as flawed humans rather than symbols. But letting go of symbolic power also meant letting go of certain privileges, and not everyone was ready for that trade. The memory of the controversy lingered as a cautionary tale. Whenever a new issue arose, people referenced it. "Remember what happened last time" became a common phrase. It slowed reactions, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Caution prevented explosions, but it also stifled necessary conversations. The balance between speaking and staying silent remained delicate. Fans continued to wrestle with their own role. Some admitted they missed the intensity, the feeling of being part of something urgent. Others were grateful for the calm. One fan wrote, "I realized I was addicted to outrage." That confession sparked a wave of agreement. Recognizing that addiction didn't erase it, but it created space for choice. Quietly, some celebrities began experimenting with new ways to communicate. Longer interviews, controlled environments, written statements instead of off-the-cuff remarks. The goal was clarity, but the result often felt distant. Fans wanted honesty, but honesty without immediacy felt rehearsed. The paradox remained unresolved. The family was left divided in subtler ways now, not by arguments, but by paths taken. Some artists leaned into activism with clearer boundaries. Others retreated into art without commentary. Friendships evolved or faded. Absence replaced confrontation. The lack of closure became its own form of closure. Over time, the narrative softened. People stopped arguing about who was right and started acknowledging complexity. "Two things can be true" became a refrain. That shift didn't satisfy everyone, but it marked growth. Emotions still ran high, but they were tempered by experience. The culture learned that moments of fracture don't announce their lessons clearly. They reveal them slowly, through changed behavior and quieter expectations. The controversy didn't end celebrity influence, but it reshaped it. Fame became less about authority and more about visibility, and visibility came with fewer illusions. As years passed, the story became something people referenced in documentaries, essays, and late-night conversations. Not with anger, but with recognition. "That was when we realized how fragile this all is," someone would say. Nods followed. Understanding replaced outrage. In the end, the lasting impact wasn't about politics or allegiance. It was about boundaries. Between celebrity and audience. Between expectation and reality. Between disagreement and dehumanization. The drama had forced those boundaries into view, uncomfortable but necessary. And so the culture moved forward, carrying the weight of what it had learned. Not perfectly, not uniformly, but more aware than before. The story didn't resolve cleanly because real stories rarely do. It settled into collective memory, shaping reactions long after the headlines faded. What remained was a quieter, more cautious space. Less explosive, more reflective. And in that space, people began rebuilding something different. Not the unity they once imagined, but a version grounded in disagreement without destruction. Imperfect, fragile, but real. As time went on, the controversy stopped feeling like a moment and started feeling like a marker. People referred to it the way they referenced major cultural shifts, as a before and after. Insiders claimed that in closed-door meetings, executives openly acknowledged it. One reportedly said, "This is when the audience changed. Not louder, not softer, just different." Fans were no longer just consuming, they were evaluating. Every word, every silence, every gesture carried weight it never used to. Celebrities felt that shift immediately. One artist allegedly admitted she now practiced interviews in front of a mirror, not to sound smarter, but to sound safer. That word, safer, kept coming up. Safety replaced boldness. Calculation replaced instinct. The joy that once came with spontaneity was now shadowed by fear of backlash. Emotions ran high privately, even when public appearances looked calm and polished. Fans noticed the emotional restraint and responded in mixed ways. Some appreciated the caution, seeing it as respect. Others felt cheated, saying the rawness that drew them in was gone. "Everything feels filtered now," one fan commented. Another replied, "Maybe it always should have been." Those two perspectives existed side by side, neither fully wrong, neither fully satisfied. Another quiet consequence was how conversations around disagreement changed. People became quicker to label, slower to listen. At the same time, there was a growing awareness of how destructive that had been. Community forums and podcasts began emphasizing nuance, reminding audiences that disagreement didn't have to mean betrayal. Those messages didn't go viral the way outrage did, but they lingered longer, planting seeds. Behind the scenes, some celebrities were reportedly dealing with identity fatigue. Being constantly interpreted took its toll. One actor allegedly said, "I don't recognize myself in how people talk about me." That disconnect between self and public image widened. Fame felt less like visibility and more like distortion. The realization that people were reacting to projections rather than reality was deeply unsettling. Fans, too, began confronting uncomfortable truths. Many realized they had expected celebrities to represent their values perfectly, filling gaps left by institutions and leaders. That expectation was never realistic, but it felt necessary at the time. Letting go of it felt like losing something familiar. Emotions ran high because detachment felt like grief. The culture's relationship with controversy evolved. Instead of immediate outrage, there was a pause. Sometimes that pause led to thoughtful discussion. Other times it led to simmering resentment that never fully resolved. Silence became ambiguous again, interpreted differently depending on who was silent and why. The lessons learned didn't erase conflict, but they changed its rhythm. In private spaces, some artists were said to be reconnecting with why they started creating in the first place. One musician allegedly said, "I forgot this was supposed to be about expression." Returning to that mindset wasn't easy. The audience was always there, even when unseen. But the intention mattered. Creating for oneself became an act of resistance against constant interpretation. Fans who stayed engaged began setting boundaries of their own. They stopped demanding instant reactions. They muted topics that drained them. They chose when to care. That selectivity wasn't apathy, it was survival. Outrage had burned too hot for too long. Emotions still ran high, but they were directed inward more often than outward. Another long-term effect was how accountability was discussed. Instead of demanding statements, some fans started asking for behavior. Consistency over declarations. Action over words. That shift changed expectations. Apologies without follow-through felt empty. Silence paired with integrity felt more acceptable. The standards evolved, unevenly but noticeably. The family was left divided in quieter ways. Not through public feuds, but through distance. Some relationships never returned to what they were. Not because of hatred, but because trust once shaken takes time to rebuild, if it ever does. People learned who could disagree without demeaning and who couldn't. Those lessons stuck. Media coverage adjusted too. Sensational headlines gave way to more cautious framing. Journalists became aware of their role in amplifying conflict. Some admitted they had poured gasoline on flames. Others defended their coverage as reflection of public interest. The truth sat somewhere in between. Awareness didn't erase incentive, but it introduced hesitation. As years passed, the controversy became a reference point for maturity. Newer fans learned about it through summaries and retrospectives, not lived experience. The emotional intensity softened with distance. What once felt overwhelming became instructive. "We've been here before," people would say, and that memory tempered reactions. Still, not all wounds healed. Some fans carried resentment quietly. Some celebrities carried regret they never voiced. The lack of closure was uncomfortable but real. Not every story ends with reconciliation. Some end with understanding, and others with acceptance of unresolved tension. The biggest change, perhaps, was humility. On all sides, fans learned they didn't control people, only their own responses. Celebrities learned influence didn't equal immunity. Both learned how quickly admiration could turn into expectation, and expectation into pressure. As the culture continued evolving, the moment remained embedded in its consciousness. Not as a scandal to relive, but as a lesson to remember. It reminded people that communities are fragile, that identity is complex, and that turning humans into symbols comes at a cost. the story didn't fade completely. It became quieter, referenced in tone rather than detail, a cautionary echo rather than a siren. And in that quiet, something new took shape. A more careful culture, not kinder all the time, but more aware of its own power to harm. In the end, what endured wasn't the outrage, but the reckoning. A shared realization that disagreement doesn't have to mean destruction, but ignoring humanity always leads there. The culture moved forward carrying that truth, imperfectly, inconsistently, but consciously. And that awareness, more than any statement or reaction, became the real legacy of the moment. As the years kept rolling forward, the moment transformed into something people referenced without naming. It became a feeling more than a headline. Insiders claimed that when new artists signed deals, mentors would quietly warn them, remember what happened back then. No explanation needed, the lesson was understood. Fame was no longer just a platform, it was a pressure cooker. Every belief, every silence, every smile could be interpreted as strategy. Emotions ran high beneath the surface, even when the outside looked calm. Fans evolved too. Many admitted they no longer wanted heroes, only honesty. Not perfection, not alignment, just transparency about being human. One fan wrote, "I don't need them to agree with me, I need them to be real." That sentiment echoed across forums and comment sections. Expectations shifted from ideological loyalty to emotional authenticity. But even that came with risk. Being real still meant being judged. The difference was that people now knew it. Behind closed doors, celebrities were reportedly more open with each other than ever before. The fear of public backlash pushed conversations inward. Private dinners replaced public statements. Hard discussions happened without cameras. One producer allegedly said, "We learned the hard way that the internet isn't where healing happens." That realization marked a turning point. Growth stopped being performative and started becoming personal. The family was left divided in ways that time couldn't fully erase. Some relationships healed slowly, scarred but intact. Others faded into polite distance. Not because of hatred, but because trust once broken doesn't always return to its original shape. People learned who they could disagree with safely and who they couldn't. Those boundaries became permanent. Fans noticed fewer public feuds, but that didn't mean harmony. It meant restraint. Disagreements still existed, but they were handled differently. Sometimes that felt mature. Other times it felt like avoidance. The balance between peace and suppression remained delicate. Emotions ran high whenever a new controversy hinted at reopening old wounds. The culture also became more aware of its own cycles. Outrage, backlash, fatigue, reflection. People started calling it out in real time. "We're doing it again," became a common comment. That self-awareness didn't stop the cycle, but it slowed it. Hesitation crept in where impulsiveness once ruled. One of the most significant shifts came in how silence was interpreted. It was no longer automatically seen as guilt or cowardice. Sometimes it was understood as self-preservation. Sometimes as processing. That nuance didn't satisfy everyone, but it allowed more space for complexity. Black and white thinking gave way, slowly, to shades of gray. Artists reclaimed parts of themselves they had hidden. Some spoke less. Others spoke more deliberately. Creativity changed too. Lyrics became introspective. Themes of isolation, pressure, and identity surfaced more often. Fans connected to that vulnerability, seeing reflections of their own exhaustion. Art became a quieter conversation instead of a loud declaration. The memory of the original controversy remained, but it lost its sharpness. It was no longer relived with anger, but with understanding. "That was rough," people would say, shaking their heads. Acknowledgement replaced outrage. That shift didn't mean forgiveness for everyone, but it meant acceptance of complexity. New generations entered the conversation without the emotional baggage of having lived through it. They learned about it through summaries, not scars. Their reactions were calmer, more analytical. Older fans watched this with mixed feelings, relieved that the pain had softened, but aware that lessons can fade if not remembered. Still, the impact lingered in subtle ways. Contracts changed. Interviews changed. Fan engagement changed. The relationship between celebrity and audience was forever altered. Not broken, but redefined. Less romantic, more realistic. What once felt like a battle for the soul of the culture revealed itself as a mirror. It showed people their expectations, their projections, their need for representation. It forced a reckoning not just with celebrities, but with each other. How quickly people turned. How easily empathy was lost. How hard it was to sit with discomfort. In the end, there was no final verdict, no universal agreement. Some still believed damage was done beyond repair. Others believed growth required pain. Both perspectives coexisted. The story didn't belong to one side. It belonged to everyone who reacted, participated, and felt something. As the culture moved on, carrying the memory quietly, the biggest change was internal. People became more cautious with their devotion. Admiration came with boundaries. Criticism came with reflection. Not always, not perfectly, but more often than before. The legacy of the moment wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about learning how fragile connection can be when amplified by power and expectation. It reminded everyone that unity isn't proven by agreement but by how people handle disagreement. And so the chapter closed without a neat ending. Not with applause or outrage, but with a collective understanding that some moments don't resolve, they reshape. The culture didn't return to what it was. It became something else, more guarded, more aware, still flawed, still emotional, but change. That change, quiet and lasting, became the real story. Not the headlines, not the reactions, but the shift in how people listened, spoke, and cared. The drama faded, but the imprint remained, etched into the way the culture moved forward, forever carrying the memory of what happens when identity, influence, and expectation collide. If you made it this far, you already know this story wasn't just gossip. It was layered, messy, emotional, and far from finished. And now it's your turn. You've seen the reactions, the silence, the fallout, and the way the culture shifted in real time. But the biggest question is still hanging in the air. How did all of this make you feel? Were the reactions justified, or did things go too far? Did Nicki force a necessary conversation, or did the response expose deeper fractures we weren't ready to face? This is where you come in. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your voice matters just as much as the celebrities involved. Tell us who you think handled this situation with grace, and who disappointed you the most. Do you think the culture will ever fully move past moments like this, or are these divisions here to stay? Be honest. Disagree respectfully. This conversation doesn't end when the video does. If this breakdown made you think, shocked you, or even frustrated you, make sure you hit that like button so more people can see it. It helps the channel more than you know. And if you want more deep dives into celebrity drama, hidden industry tensions, and the stories everyone's afraid to talk about, subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. This story may have slowed down, but it's not over. New reactions, new twists, and new truths are always around the corner. Stay locked in, stay curious, and most importantly, keep questioning the narrative. We'll see you in the next one.